Well, hello, my weary traveler. How are you, my weary travelers out there? Once again, this is your fitness captain here, just making sure that we're on. Yes, we are. As you can see, I'm in my beautiful garden here in the powerful country of Canada. And my sister actually makes fun of me because I talk so much about the US, where Joe from the Carolinas, my buddy, is from, discussing, of course, the analysis of the black budget and the secret space program, which we're going to get into in a moment, the breakaway covert military civilizations. I'm going to start calling it covert military civilizations, I think, because that's exactly what we have. Dolan used the term breakaway civilization, which is a cool term as well. And I've expanded on that term, which I'll use again, covert military civilizations. But today, my friends, are you guys ready for a cacophony, cavalcade conversation with your fitness captain? Are you ready for my deep research, approximation, evaluation, analysis, discussion, and hard assessment on Richard Dolan's live stream today? Because we're going to get right into it. We're going to break it apart. He did a very good job at times discussing the history, some history of the secret space program, but he left a lot out, my friends. And before I forget, for starters, this is my wheelhouse, the SSP secret space program. And I want to say, my friends, again, before I forget, that anytime we talk about the secret space program, if you're going to get into the history and try and define, like Dolan did, as to the evidence for a secret space program. It's actually plural, secret space programs, but we'll just say secret space program. Or again, the short form is SSP. I'm kind of glad Dolan didn't use that term. That's for guys like Joe from the Carolinas and I, with a cooler vibe. Although Richard Dolan's got his own persona, and most of it's a good persona. He's got his own kind of charisma, but Dolan, he tippy-toes a lot. That's part of his persona that we're going to get into, where I wish he would improve. But, you know, we all each have our own styles, don't we? But I'm doing these videos, my friends, again, to try to bring out the truth. I don't have any other agenda except to try to fight for the freedom of humanity in my own unique way, try to do thorough research in these crucial, important, timely subjects, my friends. Because again, I can't think of a more important subject than the UFO phenomenon, as a lot of people like to put it. Let's say the UFO subject, because the only phenomenon, my friend, should be really the propulsion systems, you know, and we'll get into who's in charge and all that. But the phenomenon has nothing to do with ET or aliens, okay? So I've made some notes, and before I forget, let's just start off by saying one of the ways that Dolan really tippy-toed in that live stream. Again, he did a good job overall. We'll get into the good points that he brought up, and we'll get into the stuff that I think, based on his viewpoints, that I don't agree with. One of them, my friends, this tippy-toe approach he has, when you watch that live stream, I don't know those of you that will or not, but you could take it from me, my friends. This is what he said, and I've got this part memorized. He basically said that he was describing, again, one of the STS missions, because he was really getting into the different live feeds, of course, from NASA, right? And you could see UFOs zipping all over the place. Someday I'll show you guys videos, but anybody could check it out on YouTube channels. Just about every live feed from NASA, you've got the trillions of dollars of hardware, as I described, zipping all over the place, just like we have here on Earth. And this is a subject matter, my friends. We're going to do many more videos, I hope, on the secret space program, because I need to talk for over an hour on this subject. Because as I say, my friends, the UFO subject is so multifaceted, complex subject in a way, with a lot of moving parts. But we can cut out the uncertainty by using the term military UFOs, my friends. So as I was saying, Dolan's describing, as I would say, a military UFO. This object does a U-turn. Now, really what these angles are, my friends, the UFOs turn 120-degree angles and 90-degree angles and so forth without decelerating, right? Just amazing maneuvers, because they're manipulating the electromagnetism and gravity with this amazing, I describe, a legendary cosmic energy, my friends, the zero-point energy, a type of anti-gravity and electromagnetic propulsion And on other videos, my friends, we'll discuss the technology that much more. There's my book I showed you in the last video, my friends, The Secrets of Anti-Gravity. So Dolan is talking about this UFO. It makes a U-turn, right? And then he says, well, I don't know if you could say that's alien technology. I don't know if it is, but it's certainly not conventional. I think I almost quoted him verbatim there, my friends. And then he says, this is where he tippy-toes, I described, my friends. He says, I don't know if it's ours, or no, he said, sorry, some may be ours, some may be theirs. And then he went on to explain his thoughts, saying that, if it's not ours, it certainly sort of necessitates a secret space program, he said in a few sentences there, right? Well, my friends, this is where it's so important to clarify, and we can do it. And it's all about, I'm trying to get our power and sovereignty back, my friends, okay? Sure, there's mystery to do with the propulsion systems. This is all in the classified world, although we'll read the publication someday, my friends, of the scientists describing the anti-gravity breakthrough they were going to make. But let me just say, those are military UFOs, my friends. Most likely the US, some other countries like Russia we'll get into, they've got their own UFO fleets, of course, in UFO programs, China as well. The Americans are the head of the game, my friends. So it could have been Russian, it could have been a Chinese UFO. And Dolan he briefly described the triangles. Actually, he went on to describe a lot of secondhand information. He was going on about reverse engineered alien craft, the ones that they call the TR-3B, what is it called? The alien reproductive vehicle. But he doesn't clarify it that, hello, this isn't reverse engineered alien craft, my friends. This is military UFOs. And again, Dolan always subscribed that the Roswell crash in 1947, that we reverse engineered ET craft. And somehow, my friends, with willful ignorance and people that are gullible, and I don't blame them entirely, corporate media had a lot to do with that, CIA, other organizations within the deep state manipulating people's perceptions, my friends, because that's what they do. It's sending a lot of disinformation, right, and distraction. That there's millions of true believers out there that think the Roswell crash was ET, and that we reverse engineered alien craft. You got even Stephen Greer. I won't even get into him that much on this video, my friends. We'll break him down on another video. But this guy, I swear to God, I've really been thinking about this dude. He's got to be a commercial dangle for the deep state. Think about it, my friends. His grandfather was German, right? He brags about how, his father worked on the Saturn V, was in charge of it. Well, he doesn't mention thousands of people were responsible for building those Saturn V rockets back in the day, right? But so he's got a connection there with the government, with his father. And CIA, my friends, in the deep state, they often pick people that have a background like that. If you're going to use somebody as a sort of a signature CIA asset in some way, a lot of times they will go back into the background of the person, my friends. And then you've got to cover if Greer is working for the deep state in some way, my friends. Either way, his narrative fits right into the deep state's model to distract people from what's really going on, my friends. You get some truths and you get lies and distraction. Greer is, of course, all about the ET hypothesis, ET theory. We've got ETs everywhere, right? They're all good. There's no bad ETs. We've got extraterrestrials. We reverse engineered alien craft. He said the Bentwaters case was ET. Give me a break. That was a total CIA psyop. Anyway, my friends, I'm getting off track with Dolan here. We'll go on about Greer another time. So Dolan was talking about how with that reverse, alien reproductive vehicle, there was, I forget the guy's name, but anyway, he went with a general to they were at an air show and they ended up at Lockheed Martin. They took a helicopter ride because the general wanted to show them the real good stuff. And so anyway, Dolan told the story of they saw 2 UFOs hovering in a hangar or something, right? And it looked like they had been on a long mission in our solar system, probably were. But he doesn't, again, this has got nothing to do with aliens, my friends. It's still very interesting. This is military UFOs. We made the breakthroughs in the 1950s, before 1952, no question about it. And it all stems with the Nazi technological development, my friends, what those Nazi scientists were working on inside Germany. And when they went to America, You know, you had a Nazi operation under Operation Paperclip. The Americans got hundreds of the brightest Nazi scientists, and as I've always said, my friends, that's when they curated amazing, radical, gnarly UFO technology. Truly epic, my friends. They harnessed this legendary cosmic energy that I'm going to talk about a lot, hopefully on my videos in the future. So, my friends, let's talk about some other things that Dolan was getting into. And I'm glad that he brought a lot of this up, my friends. He talked about, of course, the comments from Neil Armstrong, Edgar Mitchell, right? You had comments over the years from Buzz Aldrin as well, talking about, you know, Phobos on Mars. And it's unfortunate, my friends, the astronauts, let me tell you, there's no question in my mind, my friends, the astronauts know that there were covert military on Mars. Buzz Aldrin knows that. They know, especially on the backside of the moon, because they saw the military there, my friends. And we'll get into that in a moment. But unfortunately, again, you got to keep in mind, my friends, you got to dig real deep, that almost every astronaut works for the military, right? They're all 32nd, 33-degree Masons, or most of them, so they're trained to keep a secret. And that's the Nazi model again, my friends. Remember back in the day, the Nazis were about esoteric cults, right? Secret societies. And then you've got that sort of all over in the United States in different groups, and the Illuminati. My friends, that's been going on in space for a long time. Plus, they have other reasons to cover up. Because, again, my friends, these elitists, this covert military breakaway civilization or covert military civilization, they don't want to let go of their fundamental income. And I would say, my friends, some of these guys, and gals perhaps, but they don't want to let go of the enslavement of the human race, unfortunately. And the biggest economic driver, my friends, in human history, not just in North America and other countries too, is what? Warfare and slavery. Catherine Austin Fitts will tell you that, right? Great Catherine Austin Fitts, who I've talked and researched, her documented. She was the one who documented the missing trillions. Remember, my friends? I've done a lot of videos on that. So Dolan was talking about Armstrong. Armstrong had mentioned to another person before, this is a well-known fact, that he said he was describing this menacing, huge sort of spacecraft that were on the moon and that they were being watched. Well, my friends, I got news for you. That doesn't mean it's alien. It was military. Again, a covert space program. And now, my friends, I've got to mention this, my friends. I've said it before. Billy Carson, who owns his own space company. If you listen to this guy, my friends, and you should, because you should listen to some of his interviews. I even told my buddy Joe from the Carolinas about this guy. We talked about it on our amazing, electrifying, powerful live stream almost 2 months ago, right, Joe? And then, guess what? A few days later, what happened to Joe? He got that community strike on a gardening video he put up over a year ago. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? It was shortly after our powerful live stream talking about the missing trillions. We won't go there. Let me just say, my friends, you know I always say in my videos, when I use the YouTube platforms and or Facebook, as we all should, I try to do it, and I do. I do it respectfully, with decor and firmness, and that's exactly what Joe and I did on that live stream, my friends. We don't swear and add garbage. You see all the garbage on some of these platforms. I won't name them, but you know. I mean, come on. So, and we're trying to help humanity and bring out truth, my friends, right? And there's a lot of mystery too with the whole UFO subject, in some ways, no question, my friends, in the app paranormal. I mean, the propulsion systems in these UFOs, my friends, it might as well be app paranormal, right? But anyway, so my friends, Billy Carson, as I was saying, this guy is not a whistleblower. He owns his own private space company, right? He has top secret clearance, therefore, at the space symposium, he tells you, in Colorado. He has to sign non-disclosure, so he can't talk about exactly what's talked about in those meetings. But he tells you everything he legally can. We'll relate this to Dolan in a minute, because Dolan, I don't think he didn't mention any of the cigar-shaped craft as part of this secret space program of some of the objects. I think it's very important, my friends, trying to stoke your intellectual curiosity about all this, because that is the second most common spacecraft. You got your flying saucers flying all over the place for decades, and the cigar-shaped craft, my friends, Billy Carson now tells you, deep into space, get this, they are the size of small cities, some of them. And my friends, you could see it for video evidence. Just have a look, because I'll give you an example, and I'm going to get a book. It's called, I think, Building the Rings of Saturn, or Ring Makers of Saturn, something like that. And with the Voyager spacecraft, my friends, they took pictures of cigar-shaped craft, these lights way in the background, cigar-shaped, and I think researchers have measured them at about 2.5 miles or so. It's hard to measure because they're way off in the distance, but they're massive. And so that would be an example of video evidence, my friends. And cigar-shaped craft have been seen by hundreds of thousands of people worldwide, my friends, I'm sure. And of course, so many in space. And so you talk about delivering massive military assets. That's my point, my friends, for the secret space program, going off-world with covert production. You better believe it's happening. And the 600-foot triangle, same idea, my friends. Can you imagine how much personnel you could fit in those black triangles? And speaking of which, my friends, I thought interesting, Dolan, I think he mentioned a brief comment from Ronald Reagan back in the day. It was actually Ronald Reagan's diaries, my friends. Let me just give you a little bit bigger picture and more concise of Ronald Reagan, what he said. It was quite startling. Reagan basically brought out, a different, there was another shuttle program, because in a secret space program, because in his diaries he said that he had lunch today. It was truly astonishing. He said he had lunch with I think it was 6 top NASA scientists, and he basically said that he learned that the developments in astronomy and such are like science fiction, but that they are real, and that we have a shuttle capacity to hold 300 people. And even researchers have discussed this, my friends, into the secret space program, wondering, well, how do you get 300 people? Because back then, you know, you had maybe 5 or 6 shuttles at what, 7, 8 people max, give or take. So you might have 20, 30 people at the most, you know, with different shuttles up there. So where does he get 300 people? Anyway, it shows you, obviously, my friends, and it stems with all those trillions of dollars of theft. And we might get into that in a moment. But they built, obviously, amazing, humongous, gigantic spacecraft, right? Probably the cigar-shaped craft. I mean, just incredible. And that's from Ronald Reagan, my friends. And remember, that was during Star Wars, right? The STS. And, you know, when I bring up Star Wars, my friends, and I'm talking about Dolan's live stream, I got to touch on the little bit of history there too, my friends, because it's so important. Because, you know, it goes back to that seminal moment when Kennedy was savagely murdered, and it was really sad, my friends, because he was such a great man in a lot of ways, trying to open up the government, fight for our freedom, my friends. And it was before my time, but I learned a lot about his life, and we all should try to honor his life. That's my opinion, my friends. Think about it, especially you guys in the United States as well. And you know, what happens in the U.S. affects us Canadians a lot in terms of the money, the missing trillions. But anyway, yeah, so Kennedy, my friends, he was onto it. He knew about the covert space program, right? And now I forget what I was going to say. But it was relating to the secret space program. Maybe it'll come to me in a moment, my friends. But yeah, Kennedy, we've got to go back to that moment, my friends, when we talk about the secret space program and when we talk about history. Because, I was going to say, you know, back then, and of course Dolan never got into this on the secret space program. I'm kind of glad he didn't, because now I get to tell you guys for the first time that Catherine Austin Fitts, I learned this from her actually, talking with dark journalists a while back, that the NASA budget peaked at 4.5% when Kennedy was alive, right? And then a few years later, not even a few years later, it dropped to 0.5%, basically right after he died, right? And that's a huge, significant drop, obviously, my friends, right? Well, Catherine tells you, and I agree, it didn't just drop, it went dark. She thinks the covert space program, it just went dark, my friends. This whole space program, because it went defunct, right? No more national idealism, no more discovery idealism of going to the moon and going to Mars. We all thought we were going to terraform Mars back then, my friends, right? And it was just a whole new era of scientific ideas and endless possibilities, finally, of us going into space. And the whole program instead goes defunct. And obviously, my friends, most of the world's been asking why. Why didn't we keep going in the moon and go to Mars and all the things that we were talking about, hoping to do, right, as a nation, particularly the U.S. and other countries. And the other thing about Kennedy, my friends, just to quickly, and we'll go back to Dolan in a moment, that Kennedy, of course, he didn't want a space race with Russia, right? He wanted a joint venture, which was awesome. He wanted to join other countries, other nations, my friends. And that went obviously against the, again, certain parts of the military, the deep state. And I always have to qualify, my friends, there's a lot of great people in the military. No question about it. No question about it. But we just got to be aware, my friends, of some of these shadow groups. And again, overall, get the truth out. Because it's so vital, my friends, for our prodigy, you know, for our kids coming up, for other generations. Because this amazing exotic technology, my friends, that is going on with space, excuse me for a moment, the anti-gravity, my friends, okay? The amazing exotic technologies that I told you in my other video is buried within private corporations and private contractors now. It's our divine right to have it. It's part of the cosmos, my friends, the zero-point energy. And Dolan touched on zero-point energy, by the way, right? He spoke about it. He said Hal Puthoff, the guy he worked with, right? You know Hal Puthoff, the vice president of the TTSA, with the frontman Luis Elizondo, by the way, and Tom DeLonge, although Tom DeLonge's been dropped as the spokesperson now because he's lousy. So, but you see, I'm trying to look like Luis Elizondo with my goatee nowadays. Hi Elizondo. But he's a great guy overall, Elizondo. But my friends, it's unfortunate, Elizondo and Tom DeLonge, I would argue, they're probably being used as puppets. I mean, they're definitely pushing out a narrative. We've discussed this before, and other guys have too. The Elizondo, he's working for the CIA, most likely as a contractor. You can't say for sure, but most likely. Come on, he worked for the CIA. You know what the CIA is like. My friends, the TTSA, and a lot of what Dolan talks about concerning the space programs, and the way Dolan talks about it, this is where they go wrong, my friends, I believe, because they're hyperbolizing and sensationalizing the vague uncertainty of the UFO phenomenon, my friends. We shouldn't have a vague uncertainty about who's piloting them. Dolan went on and on about that, right? Remember, he said, like, speaking of that one object, for example, using as an example, well, some may be ours, some may be theirs, but, you know, if it's not ours, certainly you need a secret space program. Well, I would agree, if it's extraterrestrial, that's all the more reason to have a massive secret space program, right? And, but my friends, it's all military, okay? It's for a covert civilization, military civilization. I found it interesting that Dolan didn't even use his own term, breakaway civilization. I'm almost positive he never used that throughout the whole live stream. And maybe it's because, my friends, maybe, because Dolan doesn't want you to go back, doesn't want you to think about, hey, we've got a group of humanity here with amazing high-pitched technologies, and that's what the breakaway civilization is supposed to be about, even in Dolan's. That's why Dolan came up with the term. It's a group of humanity, my friends, that's responsible largely for the secret space program. Again, going off-world, right? With all the trillions of dollars of hardware. It's got nothing to do with extraterrestrial ET coming from another star system. And I know Dolan's watched some of my videos, my friends. I know he has. I've discussed it with my buddy Joe, because even in this live stream, it showed me more than ever. I already suspected he watched my videos, and I'm glad he has. Hi, Dolan, Richard Dolan. But seriously, because he tried to define why he used the term others the last few years. In one of my videos, my friends, I just simply stated that, do you notice that Dolan has not used ET extraterrestrial so much? He's using this term others, part of his tippy toe, you know, I would say. And I don't mean that in a real disrespectful way. But a friend of mine who's a psychotherapist, he's a brilliant guy, knows a lot about psychology. He was the one who told me that, describing sort of Richard Dolan's persona or approach to this subject, the way he talks, and I would agree with him. He doesn't always tippy-toe, just at times. Don't get mad at me, Dolan, I'm just saying. And Dolan's done a lot of great work. I almost kind of wish, though, I'm glad Dolan put out he did a very good job overall in the SSP, the live stream. He did the best he could. He put energy into it. He did good. He's done his research. He's a historian by trade. He talked about some good history with the SSP that we're going over. But again, my friends, there's a lot, when you bring up the SSP, as Dolan did, I guess it's up to me now, you've got to talk about the missing trillions. You should be bringing up Lockheed Martin, the fact that they've got their tentacles everywhere, right? The largest defense contractor in the U.S. And my friends, and these guys, Lockheed Martin, of course, you know, when you look at Catherine Austin Fitts and what she said in her interviews with her experience at HUD in the housing department, Lockheed Martin, every time Catherine went to get data, you know, for HUD or DOD or whatever it was blocked by who? Lockheed Martin. When she went, what was really interesting, my friends, and Dark Journals covered this as well, because he's talked to Catherine, that every time she went to get contracting paperwork, you know, that came out of HUD, as well as many other various agencies of the government, it was always blocked by Lockheed Martin. So the point is, my friends, you've got the biggest defense contractor basically in the U.S., and you know, you got Northrop Grumman and all these other big contractors, but Lockheed Martin, you've got a military contractor controlling all the data in the federal government. I mean, that's a serious, serious issue and serious problem, my friends. And the people of the United States should be aware of that, okay? And again, I'm in my powerful country, Canada. And I'm very honored to be able to, again, we should be able to use these platforms, my friends, and talk about these issues, try to do it in an intelligent way. You know, I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to collect the data points, my friends, you know, and I'm trying to get better as a researcher. Hopefully you guys concur with that I am hopefully getting better. And again, we'll get that video camera going. I'll be working with my professional photographer, hopefully in the very near future. I've been very frustrated, my friends, but I'm doing the best I can. Hopefully you get a good picture today, and hopefully we'll keep an eye on the time because I don't have a stopwatch, all right? But let's get back. So I talked about Lockheed Martin. By the way, they're in Antarctica. So Rick Dolan, I think he mentioned Lockheed Martin very, very briefly, which is cool, whatever. So that's done. Now let me just go over something here, my friends. Dolan, I thought it was interesting. Glad he brought this up. He brought some comments up from a person that Dolan thought was pretty famous in the field, and he's right. But he didn't bring up the guy's name. He did that on purpose. I'm not sure why, and that's fine. But let me just fill you in then, guys. This is why I'm doing this video, guys and gals. That the guy he was talking about, because he was saying how this person over the phone to Goodall or whatever the guy's name, he was saying how we have things in the Nevada desert that would make George Lucas envious. You know, we have anything you can think of in Star Trek, Star Wars. We've been there, done that, or we thought it wasn't even worth the time. Okay, didn't quite use those terms, but that's exactly what the comments were. And guess who it was? It was from Ben Rich, my friends, the head of Lockheed Skunk Works. You better believe it. He took over from Kelly Johnson, right? In the 1990s, Kelly Johnson was the founder of the Skunk Works, now Lockheed Martin, back in the 1970s. So Ben Rich made those comments, my friends. So you better believe, again, another example of you've got a covert military civilization out there. And I think that's why Dolan doesn't bring up these guys, my friends, why he doesn't bring up Ben Rich, because, or maybe I'm wrong, but it really goes to show, my friends, there is definitely a covert side in the United States, of course, that's developed a massive secret space program. And other countries have their own UFO programs as well. As a matter of fact, my friends, I found kind of interesting. I found out recently that China has about, I think, 300,000 people overtly described in working in their UFO programs. United States has 200,000 approximately, and I think Russia has 250,000. So I thought that was interesting. But no question, my friends, when it concerns weaponry of space, and I think Dolan touched briefly on weaponry of space, and there's a lot of control methods. We're going to get into that, my friends, especially on other videos I might touch on in a moment. But let me just say, I know I'm talking fairly quickly, I'll try to slow down. But no, seriously, the US have significant weapons in space. Other countries know it. That's why I've touched on other videos, my friends, and Catherine tells you too that, you know, those treaties that were made in the 1960s, it says you can't weaponize space. And that she thinks that the reason the US won't sign them, logic dictates, because, you know, the US don't want to have to lie that they've weaponized space. And so they're sort of pretending it's not happening, and, you know, they don't want to sign them. So it is what it is. And we just got to be aware of that too, my friends. And I'm not saying it's all bad. Of course, the weaponization of space, though, my friends, that's real. I don't know. It doesn't sound too good. And during the Reagan years, of course, this really, really got started, my friends. It was the whole militarization of space. And again, my friends, it's important history, right? Because, again, like, that's a whole different discovery ideal than what John F. Kennedy was trying to do. You know what I mean? With the that's when the military just shows the military power going up and up and up over the decades, my friends. And where did it start? Dolan never talked about where. I don't think he mentioned really the history, because he's exactly sort of where the secret space program really started to get a foothold, or where it began. The very begins, I would say, is 1947, my friends. I think that was the defining driver of the U.S. economy ever since then, really. It's always been space, my friends, since 1947. Remember, you had the Roswell crash. Again, that is not ET, my friends. There is no evidence. And think about it. The paperclip scientists were all in those areas where the crash happened. They were in Dayton, right? They were in Dayton, Palmdale. I forget the other areas. They're all in New Mexico. I mean, come on. Logic dictates again, my friends. Most likely that was some sort of Nazi spacecraft, or Nazis and Americans working together. Could have been Russian too. You know, you hear all the different stories. But my friends, come on. And you know, these deathbed confessions, God rest their souls, the people that have passed on and died. But my friends, you can't take that to court. You know, there's all kinds of reasons why somebody might say at the end of their life that, you know, they thought it was ET. And whatever bodies were seen, they could have been miniature little looking aliens. Who knows? I mean, because of the fire. But my friends, again, I will never vacillate from my belief, and I think it's a real fact. You don't just have to believe it. If you collect the data points, my friends, you do your research, and you know what the military is about, and you know what they've been doing, it's all military UFOs. And you go back to human ingenuity, my friends. If you just know what those Nazis were working on in the SS, the Nazi scientists in Germany, they came up with that primitive anti-gravity. Very important to note, okay? And I guess, you know, Dolan, because he's talking about the secret space program, and maybe he realized he only had a certain amount of time, he never got into the Glock, what those Nazi scientists were working on. But I noticed Dolan never hardly ever talks about it. I also noticed, my friends, that I did a video on August 16th. I was giving this some thought. It was shortly after that video, about a week later, that Dolan had a radio interview with none other than Joseph P. Farrell. And I've tried to cover a lot of Joseph's research in my videos, my not so very, they were more clunky videos back months ago, right? But so he had Joseph on a radio interview, and I noticed that Dolan, I was glad he asked him, he started to cover the Nazi technology, asking Joseph some important questions about what they were working on, including the all-important, the Bell project, right? The Glock in German, but and I think, my friends, I just wonder if maybe Dolan again had watched my videos, and he knew that I was questioning Dolan, why aren't you talking about the Nazi technological development, the history of those Nazis back then, on what they were working on, because it was an anti-gravity. They had made a breakthrough, my friends, and that's why the U.S., right, got the hundreds of the brightest Nazi scientists. Why did the U.S. make all the devil dealings with the Nazi scientists, my friends? You know, there was only one reason. The UFO technology, right? And you got Jewish scientists. I meant to say this on the live stream with Joe, my friends. You have Jewish scientists like the great Albert Einstein, and many of his Jewish scientists, apparently, they were vehemently against, of course, the Nazi scientists coming over here, and rightly so. I mean, what was happening to the Jews in Germany, those poor guys, you know, gals. So this is all part of history, my friends. But we did make the devil dealings, or the U.S. did, and apparently they were driving around in Cadillacs, and there's a lot of great Americans, by the way, don't get me wrong. Just talking about the history and what happened, my friends, and the agendas that were in place. And then, of course, they had the Nazis start up the United States space program. And Dolan never mentioned this, my friends. When you talk about a secret space program, this is partly why I'm bringing it up now, is that you've got to mention somewhere about the Nazi scientists, my friends, because they started up basically the U.S. space program. And even the great Michael Schratt, you know, the aerospace historian, great researcher, I mentioned about this guy to Joe, because he really breaks down, you know, the Nazi scientists in New Mexican desert during Roswell at the time, and over the decades, what they've been working on, or back then, I started in 1947 in particular. And so it's vital, my friends, and Michael Schratt, you know, describes that the U.S. template, the U.S. totally used a lot of what the Nazis were about. A lot of the philosophy, the right down to the countdown, my friends, of the apparently of the shuttles or whatever, the space programs, that was Nazi model, my friends. And of course, the whole spy organization under Reinhard Gehlen, remember at the end of World War II, on the Eastern Front, that just rolled right into the CIA. I mean, this is a known fact. And that was a huge spy network, my friends, okay? And you better believe, unfortunately, the Fourth Reich of Nazi Germany, it continued, no question about it. And that UFO flyover, even Dolan spoke about this quite a bit. I think he touched on the live stream, I'm not sure, but that 1952 flyover, no, he didn't talk about on the live stream, but I think that's part of the secret space program in a way as well, my friends. Although, actually, that wasn't in space, that incident, but you've got a rogue group covertly, another covert military civilization. I think that was a group of Nazis, most likely, my friends. Could have been Russian, but most likely Nazis because of their developments back then. They were way ahead of the game. The Nazis knew, the Nazi scientists, they knew that the Americans had many of their scientists in 1947. And I think that was either Americans and Nazis together showing that basically, again, the Fourth Reich continues. So I think it was more of a rogue Nazi group with their amazing anti-gravity. I mean, who else could it be, my friends? It certainly wasn't, again, extraterrestrial ET. You never need an ET extraterrestrial explanation. You don't, my friends, okay? You don't need an alien explanation to all this. It's all us, human ingenuity, that made those breakthroughs, which is almost just as interesting, I always say, my friends. And I always qualify it, as I did on the live stream, because cosmology and astronomy is one of my passions, my friends. And it's a known fact that, you know, cosmologists, scientists, many of them will tell you, we're on the cusp of this generation or the next to finally find out, are we alone or not, my friends? With the amazing sophisticated telescopes, again, the James Webb is about to be released in October, right? It's going to be another game changer taking over from the Hubble. And the big difference is going to specialize to see in the deep infrared and reveal the delicate star formations beneath, and give us a whole new understanding in a way of cosmic time. They know they're going to make major discoveries, my friends, with this telescope. So stick around for this, my friends. I always say, we live in a remarkable and privileged era, don't we? The information superhighway, uninhibited, unedited, and an era of space travel and exploration. So great to be alive. So back to Dolan's live stream, my friends. And I wish Dolan, I've said before, I wish him nothing but success. We're just going to go over some of this very, important revelations and information, some of which he discussed, and some of which that I've researched on my own, my friends, of stuff. Most of the stuff that Dolan talked about, I've already known, my friends, but he did come up with some things that I wasn't aware of history, some people I didn't know. He talked about, who was it? Donna O'Hare, my friend, and her boyfriend even, and third-hand information that he was told that some of these spacecrafts on the moon were extraterrestrial, I think was the story. But it was interesting that Dolan brought up this real history that Donna O'Hare, when she was working at NASA, I'm sure it was NASA, she had top secret clearance. Anyway, she was in charge with other people of airbrushing photos out back in the, I think that was the 1960s, right? And, late 1960s or 70s, they had to airbrush photos. And she's told the world this, and I knew this. And what's interesting, my friends, most people may not know that, but if you just go to the YouTube channels, not only did they airbrush them out, apparently from Don O'Hare and people, when they got the photos from the NSA photo analysts or whatever, but they actually put tape. If you go to YouTube channels, my friends, you'll see on some of the structures on the moon, and probably UFOs as well, it's black tape, because they didn't have the technology, poor NASA. They didn't have the sophisticated technology that we have nowadays. They couldn't Photoshop or digitalize, I guess, and cover up things. So they did, talk about an egregious lie, putting tape over stuff on the moon. But it's there, my friends. Again, NASA, as much as they try to cover up, they can't cover up everything. Billy Carson tells you the same thing, my friends. And, by the way, again, relating indirectly to the secret space program, or directly to it, I really should say, is that NASA, my friends, you got to realize, NASA is a cover for the NRO and Air Force space programs, or NORAD and Air Force space programs. And they're a cover, my friends, and you might ask, well, what are they a cover for? They're a cover for, you guessed it now, right? The Navy. The Navy's even a more highly classified covert space program. This is vital, my friends. Nowadays, the Navy is spearheading under the branch chain of military, my friends. They are in charge largely of the UFO file and the massive USOs coming out of the oceans worldwide, my friends. Yes, you call them USOs, or people do, right? Unsubmergible objects. The technology is amazing. One day, my friends, I may show you a brief video. It's only about 3-5 minutes long. It's a flying saucer basically going in a straight line, and it eventually goes over the ocean, and it goes into the water. It doesn't even make a splash. And my friends, hundreds of thousands of people worldwide, or thousands at least, have seen USOs coming out of the oceans. It's incredible, and they're tracked on radar going into space. But anybody who watches just corporate media, my friends, they won't know these facts. Corporate media never covers this. They don't talk about the Navy being in charge of the space program. And my friends, it's on the badges, right? Dolan touched on the Navy only once, very briefly. I think he mentioned about the command with the Navy, insinuating like they've got a space command. The badges says Naval Space Command nowadays on the badges, my friends. That should tell you everything. And again, what better way to cover up this amazing technology, my friends, and have a covert military civilization than underneath the oceans? And we know through the patents of the boring machines back, I think it was in the 1950s and 1940s, my friends, the scientists had artist renditions. I'll get the years down pat of the timeline, but they had rendition pictures of what they wanted to do underneath the oceans, even way back then, my friends. And Catherine Austin Fitz will tell you, if you look at the mining stocks the last 50 years, my friends, I hope I don't sound too serious, by the way, but seriously, she says if you look at the mining stocks the last 50 years, a lot of times they're not, mining for gold, silver metals, base metals. They're mining, she believes, for those under ocean bases. I mean, even she was telling stories of the Bush administration, also here on Earth, where they're drilling. It was at Zapata, right, in Texas or somewhere near there, where he was supposed to do this offshore drilling. But she thinks they were actually drilling for underground bases. And that's a huge part of this whole infrastructure, my friends, of hiding these UFOs, the trillions of dollars of hardware. It's most likely underground, just like in Nevada at Area 51. Remember, they were testing all this exotic technology. Dolan touched on some of the UFO programs going on in Nevada back in the 1980s and stuff. So it's there, my friends, and for sure, we definitely have secret space programs. I mean, it is massive too, my friends. I mean, this is the lion's share of the economy. The whole US economy, my friends, is really being organized and run to produce the resources to go into space. And again, 1947 was the defining driver where it really started, my friends, with the space program. Again, you had Operation Paperclip. You knew if you know what those Nazis were working on, the scientists back then, Germany, my friends, then you know why the Americans were so anxious to get those Nazi scientists over, right? And make those devil dealings. I mean, Walter Dornberger, here's one of the deals the US within the deep state made, or just even the US regular government made with those Nazi scientists. They brought over one of the most notorious Nazi scientists, Walter Dornberger. There's a lot of great German people, my friends, don't get me wrong. Germany's amazing people, some of these people. I'm just talking about the Nazi scientists, my friends, and they're not all evil necessarily, but Walter Dornberger was one of the most notorious. This guy, he had a lot of flaws in his personality, I'll tell you, because this guy used to hang people that didn't agree with him in the slave labor camps. Yes, and he was in charge of the secret weapons project in Nazi Germany, I believe, at the time. So this guy was the highest of the highs, basically right under Hitler. He was even higher up than Werner von Braun, the great Werner von Braun. We always got to mention him when you talk about Nazi German scientists. So, you know what the U.S. did? They gave him vice president of Bell Helicopter, my friends, when they brought him to the U.S. And they were, first of all, he was this close to being hung, right, at the war crimes trial. But the U.S. rescued him. And when I mention that position of Bell Helicopter, that's vital, my friends. It shows you almost like, again, the Fourth Reich continued. You're getting guys in position. That's a real sensitive position to do with the military intelligence, my friends, right? Bell Helicopter, president? He was either vice president or president. And Walter Dornberger was very much into space, my friends. Dark Journal's done a great job. Walter Dornberger, invented had a lot to do with the X-planes back then, a lot of technology. So it all connects together, my friends. And again, it's all part of history. And so The covert space program, my friends, it's been going on for decades and decades and decades. And the whole cover-up of the anti-gravity, producing these resources to go into space, and now we're seeing a push for the whole world finally to go into space. At least on the, you know, on the public side, we've got more of a push for the private space companies, I should say. There's always going to be that covert space program until we can get more truth and light on it. That's why I'm trying to do it through my videos, my friends, and others, right? But we've got to push now for more of the world to go into space. And I think part of that is we're going to transfer out of the black budget technology to help us build the industrial base, right? And that's going to really expand productivity to allow us to go into space. And I'll be talking more about that and the space-based economy, hopefully in another video, my friends. We'll get right into it because it's just amazing times we live in again, my friends, and there's trillions of dollars to be made in space. And that's why you got Donald Trump. He's trying to get the Space Force, right, passed through Congress. I hope Congress doesn't allow him to, but they probably will. He couldn't get the term Space Corps passed the year before, I think, right? Dark Journalist has talked about it as well. And because I think Trump, my friends, being a businessman, and you know, he knows that there's a lot of money to be made in space, and you don't have to be a successful businessman to know that. We know Donald Trump has made a lot of mistakes in business, but you know, nobody's perfect, right? But Trump, I mean, come on, my friends. This guy, Donald Trump, is trumpeting rockets. That's right. Donald Trump is trumpeting rockets. I'm going to do a video showing you guys, my friends, one day. There's at least 2 videos where the guy is bragging about rockets. And he's saying, you know, guys seem to think rockets are cool. And then he's got a model of a rocket in a meeting. And then he's at a